My name's Todd Sullivan,
And I'm Oren Barter.
and you're listening to When Bad Things Happen to Good People, a podcast about censorship and the arts. And today we are, as I said, finalizing our look at the Handmaid's Tale by Margret Atwood.
Is there supposed to be music?
Yeah, I hear it, don't you?
No.
Oh. Well, am I just okay? Oh, maybe I do this. Hang on. Does this do something?
No.
Oh, okay. Hang on. I'm getting there. Play. Oh, there we go. Hang on. We're finalizing our look at The Handmaid's Tale by Margret Atwood.
There we go.
It's fun doing things for the first time ever.
Live, of course.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so just to be clear, the that music option wasn't available when we did this on the last stream, so we used the high-tech method of now it's playing again.
I played it through my I played it through my headphones and just like put my microphone right up against the headphones.
Yeah. And so now 3 weeks later, 4 weeks later, many weeks later, Podbean has now added the ability to use your own custom music in the live broadcast. So we're able to do that, except it took me like, I don't know, a minute to figure out how to do that. Oh, I can turn off whether or not it loops. Yeah, don't loop, just play once. Okay. I guess that's in case you want to have music going,
welcome,
like in the background forever. Yeah, welcome.
Welcome to When Bad Things Happen to Good People, a podcast about how to do podcasts.
No, it's actually about how not to do podcasts. Whatever we're doing here,
we're going to mess it up first, so you don't have to.
Yeah, exactly. We can see we've got Dungar 604 in the chat room there. So hello, Dungar. If you want to type a message or call in later, you're more than welcome to. Welcome. We're talking about The Handmaid's Tale by Margret Atwood. But first, I want to talk about what we're doing for the next couple of weeks.
Oh no, you said but first, and you got me excited.
Oh yeah. We've got announcements. I always love making announcements about what we got going on, because I pretend that people actually care about that, and in spite of evidence to the contrary. So first, we're taking next Sunday off. That's December 6th. We're gonna give ourselves a little bit of a break because we've been going on a weekly schedule and we're like tired of it. No, I'm kidding. But we are going to take that weekend off, and then the following weekend, which would be
the 13th.
The 13th. We're going to be covering a children's book called "I Am Jazz." "I Am Jazz" is the story of a transgender child based on the real life experience of Jazz Jennings, who has become a spokesperson for trans kids everywhere. And I didn't realize until yesterday that when I was looking up the book again, that Jazz Jennings is actually has a reality show about her or them.
Oh, okay.
To be fair, I don't know if they prefer they them or she her. They were born a boy. But born in a boy's body, I guess, but always felt like they were a female. And so it's their story, and they were involved in the writing of it. So it's very much from that perspective. And when we were finishing up The Handmaid's Tale, I thought, well, we've done a book covering sort of, the Black American experience. We've done a book looking at sort of like the female perspective. What's another perspective that I, as a pretty privileged white male, might not understand and might want to explore? And my first thought was, I would love to find a book by a transgender individual. And came across this one, and it covers two bases where it's a book about a transgender person. It's also a children's book, and there have been a lot of banning of children's books of things like this. There's other ones about children with like two moms or two dads that get banned because, of course, those aren't traditional families, and a lot of times these
I think
bannings
we
are
had one
coming from.
on the possible list there. What was it?
Yeah, I can't. It's something like this. It's an M name, I think. It's like Marcia or Monica, or somebody has two mommies, or something like that. But that is on our list of things to cover at some point. And the nice thing about doing a children's book too is it doesn't take a whole lot of time to read. We're not going to actually read this. There's a video on YouTube where Jazz herself actually reads the book, and that's what we're going to be watching to get our understanding of the book, and then we'll be talking about that on December 13th. Then we're following that up on December 20th with our special Christmas episode, which features a film called Hail Mary, which, according to Wikipedia, is a 1985 French erotic drama film written and directed by Jean-Luc Godard. The film is a modern retelling of the story of a virgin birth, and it was entered into the 35th annual Berlin International Film Festival. I think that might be the first time that a film described as an erotic drama is also described as a Christmas film. But I'm very, very much looking forward to that as well. I think, yeah, the idea of a modern retelling of the story of the virgin birth certainly maybe displeased a lot of religious groups. Certainly Catholics. I'm sure Catholics have a particular fondness for the Virgin Mary. And that's probably how it has ended up censored and banned in places.
Yeah.
And then, sorry, I'm enjoying my coffee here. Do you want to tell everybody what we're going to be doing in January?
In January, we're going to cover A Clockwork Orange.
Mm-hmm.
I did watch the movie quite a while ago. It was, if you haven't seen it, very interesting film. But yeah, we're going to cover the book, and I'm excited for that one. Actually, I think that was on my list for quite a while to read, not just because it was banned. I knew the movie had controversy. I didn't realize that the book had been challenged as well, but it makes sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm excited for that.
Yeah, what we're going to do. So we're doing the 13th and 20th, then we're taking the 27th of December and the 3rd of January off for the holidays. And then we are back on January 10th, and we're going to be spending the whole month on A Clockwork Orange because we're doing both the book and the film because both have been censored in their own ways or banned in their own ways. The book will be covered over 2 weeks, the 10th and the 17th. The 24th, we'll talk about the film. The 31st will be a live wrap-up talking about both the movie and the book. And I'm kind of excited to be able to sort of cover. We did talk a little bit about the Malcolm X film when we did that one, but the film had never actually been banned. So this one, in this case, it's something that we can look at the book and the film together as two separate pieces of art that have been banned. And what's interesting about the film is that it was banned in the UK by the director himself when Kubrick sort of learned that it was being pointed to as inspiration for certain violent crimes in the UK, he was like, well, fuck it, we'll just take it out of circulation then. Nobody can see it in the UK anymore. I believe that they have started showing it again since his death, but for a long time, you couldn't see it in the UK. So that's an interesting case. You don't see a lot of artists agreeing to censor their own work. Yeah. It's usually the opposite. They sort of fight for it. Another author who's done that is Stephen King. He's pulled his novel Rage from circulation after it was accused of being sort of inspiration in some school shootings. And that's another one that I'd like to cover on this podcast at some point. Sorry, what were you about to say about artists not self-censoring?
I was gonna bring up Stephen King. So.
Oh yeah. I mean, there are cases of it, but it's rarer, and I think.
Well, generally, you're not gonna spend that energy creating something just to not have it in people's minds, right? Like you're not gonna make something and be like, no, you know what? I just spent years making this. I don't want anybody to see it.
Yeah, I changed my mind, guys. It's only been out there for a month, but
Yeah.
you know what? I think it sucks. I'm pulling it away now. All right. Well,
Yeah.
that's what we got coming up. That's our schedule for the next couple of months. A lot going on. We got some ideas for Easter as well. Some fun surprises, but we're not going to get into those today. So with that out of the way, I guess we can talk about The Handmaid's Tale, which I don't know. Let's just jump on a star rating. Do you have a star rating for it?
So yeah, I give it a 4 out of 5.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
My reasoning is that I do think, like, I really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed it.
Mhm.
In a way, I'm sad that I hadn't gotten to it sooner, because I now kind of have a desire to dig more into Margret Atwood's back catalog, and also I'm curious to read The Testaments, which is the sequel to this.
Mhm.
But as much as I enjoyed it, I did feel like there were some things that I just little bits that I think not necessarily could have been improved, but things that were missing. I
And
really
that might have been on purpose.
maybe, yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
I'm just talking about my experience. I'm not saying
Mhm.
that Margaret Atwood was wrong
Right,
to do
right,
it
right.
that way, but it's just
That's right.
I feel like I would have liked to have known more about the world. And I know that's
Mhm.
like, this is, I mean, it's in the name, it's the Handmaid's Tale, it's her story, but
Mhm.
I felt like we got a chance to see a lot of the world, but where the lines, like where our perception of the world ended, I would have liked to have seen more. Like, do like simple things like, do fast food restaurants still exist? Who works there? Who are those people? Are there still car manufacturers? Like,
Mm.
the things that we know
I think
exist.
yeah.
Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. I was gonna say,
No,
I
it's
think they
really,
answered the fast food thing
did they?
because they had to go. Yeah, like it was just like every grocery store was like its own thing, and I think that there was. Well, yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe there would be
But I mean, okay, maybe not fast
restaurants.
food, right? But there must be restaurants. There must be takeout, you'd think, but then maybe not.
Hmm.
And then again, there's the car manufacturers and who works with there, because it seemed like literally everyone was broken down into either the I can't remember what the low level guys were called, but then the angels and then the commanders, and that was it. And
Well,
everybody sort
the
of,
Guardians,
the guardians,
the
right? I can't
Guardians,
want to call
Angels,
them
yeah,
generals, but that's not it. Yeah. And the guardians were sort of like manual labor, and I guess they're probably the ones that would be working in the restaurants, or well, definitely like
I
the
mean,
auto factories, if there still were those. Although
yeah,
maybe cars are imported like they are now. Like, maybe all the cars are coming from Japan.
maybe.
Everyone's driving a Toyota now.
Well, yeah,
But yeah, I just would have
okay.
had and a bit more about the history of the world as well. A better, just a slightly better glimpse at how things got to be the way they were. And that is something that, because I've watched the first season of the TV show now.
Hi there,
Um,
Class 1 probe.
hey,
We got
hello.
someone else came in.
Yeah. I have seen the first season of the TV series at this point, and it basically follows the course of the book, but also makes both subtle and major changes, and also digs deeper into things, like the history, and a lot more backstory on sort of supporting characters. Like, you find out a fair amount about Serena Joy, and actually how her and her husband worked together towards creating this new state of the world. And so, yeah, it's been interesting seeing how the TV show has been able to, like, because it's a TV show and because it's got that much
Mhm.
time, stretch out and explore some of those gaps, and
No.
find out what's going on in Canada.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
What's going on in Canada?
They have
Oh, spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! If you
oh
haven't
yeah,
seen the
spoiler
series,
alert.
I
Yeah,
guess. Yeah.
I guess. There's a little Little America in Toronto, I think, where basically
Okay.
Americans who've escaped live. And in fact, one of the big changes, I shouldn't say it's a change necessarily, because we don't know for sure that Luke dies in the book, Luke being the handmaid's husband. He doesn't die in the TV show. And in fact, he makes it out to Canada and ends up finding out that his wife is still alive.
Oh, okay.
In fact,
Now, am I correct in is Margaret Atwood was involved in the TV show in at least some way, right?
I don't know if
So-
she's like super hands-on. She's like listed as an executive producer or something like that, and she did have a cameo in the
Right.
first episode.
I'm just
and she
wondering
also-
if like the TV show is canon, like when you take the Handmaid's Tale and the sequel into account, is it all kind of the same universe, or do you think there's been some liberties taken with
Well,
the TV show?
From what I've read, she did work with the TV show writers when she was working on the Testaments, and it was sort of to make sure that,
Okay.
because the Testaments takes place sort of, I think, many years. I want to say like at 15, maybe more years after The Handmaid's Tale.
Okay.
It's probably more than that. Whereas the TV series is, the second and third seasons, I think, follow pretty much immediately from the end of the previous one, which puts it like right after the events of the book. And so I believe she worked with the writers and sort of talked about what their plans were for the show so that she wouldn't contradict anything in her book.
Oh, okay.
Now, I don't know if that means that like she would say that the TV show is canon, but it certainly seems, and I mean, I certainly can't respond without having seen the rest of the series and read the Testaments, but it seems likely that she is trying to do it in a way where there's at least a loose
It's consistent
connection. Yeah.
Yeah. Like,
And in
there's some
fact,
consistency.
one of the things she said is that she was inspired to write the book by the performance of the woman who played Aunt Lydia in the show. And I think that's why, Aunt Lydia is one of the three major narrating characters in the Testaments.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm curious, but to my knowledge, that one hasn't been banned anywhere yet. So I don't think we can officially cover it.
Well, we can just read it for our own enjoyment.
Yeah, that's true. Or maybe I can I don't know, pay somebody here in Kamloops to challenge it at one of the schools here so I can jump on top of it. Yes! We must fight to keep this book available.
You should just make a club, like a banning club, just so you can ban the books you want to cover.
You want to read, yeah. But I guess that takes us to, whether or not we think this is a book that should be banned. I guess specifically in schools, because that's probably where it gets challenged the most often.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
I'm gonna go ahead and say that I think every girl age 13 and up absolutely needs to read this book.
Okay,
That's
a bold statement.
It is a bold statement. I'm made of bold statements.
I gotta say, I think 13 might be too young. I think like 15, 16 would be okay. But yeah, I can definitely see why it's challenged. Some of the language, some of the ideas, some of the morbid. It was dark. It was. It took me to some dark places. So, I can definitely see why it would be challenged. I don't know if
I think more than anything else, I think it's the negative depiction of religion that is what the challenges are ultimately about.
See, now on that grounds, I wouldn't agree with that. Yeah,
but I think they might point to things like language. They might point to things like disturbing sequences. But I think under it all, the problem that the people have with this book is that those things are done in association with this negative perspective on religion. Mm-hmm. That's my opinion.
Yeah, because there's other books that are around that are pretty out there, right? Like, yeah, it's not like I see what you mean by that. Yeah,
and there's when you're looking at schools too, there's sort of two levels of banning as well. There's banning in the classroom level where like a book would be on the curriculum, and parents are saying, "Oh no, I don't want this book forced on my child." And then there's the other one where the book is just in the library, nobody's forcing it on anybody. and that sort of thing. So I could see, like, I see this one as potentially being a book that's in classrooms a lot. It is something that I think teachers want to try to teach, and so there's going to be more pushback on that than books like say Stephen King novels that are gory and messed up that are just sitting in the library, but no one's trying to make that part of the curriculum.
Right.
But I do stand by my position that I do think every girl 13 years and older should read it, because I think there's a lot of they need people. There are people who want to move the world in the direction of The Handmaid's Tale. I don't think any of them would say that's the world that we want. But there are people who want to be actively taking away women's reproductive rights. And I think
absolutely, yeah,
women
need to understand that it's
that it's happening, and in a way that's not just having a teacher sit down and say, talk about Roe versus Wade and boring laws and things like that. It's got to be done in a way that can capture their imagination and make them want to learn about it, and then upon learning about it, like, become better informed about it. So I think it's an incredibly valuable book.
And I think that's an interesting thing. Like, we take a lot of our rights for granted, like when we live with them our whole lives, and we can't really imagine life without them, I think, in a lot of ways, unless we've seen somebody living without them. And she kind of touched on that in the book, like, her of Fred and, the other handmaids and Aunt Lydia and, all those people that knew the time before, understood what was lost. Even the commander who had a hand in changing everything even understood, like, the things that were lost and missed things that were lost.
Yeah.
And like the aunts would talk about how, your generation, once the next generation comes up, everything will be easier for them. They won't have that temptation. They won't have that knowledge of what it was before. And she really, I think, tried to hit home how fast things can change. Because and she even, like, mentions it's only a few years, and maybe the timing was often of Fred's head. Maybe it had been a little bit longer. It did seem like it would have took a little longer for things to get to where they were, but things do change very quickly when they do change.
Yeah.
And it seems to be things regress a lot quicker than things progress.
Well, I think, like, if you look at like, one of the reasons we wanted to look at this book was because of Amy Coney Barrett joining the Supreme Court in the U.S. And the idea that having a bunch of the Supreme Court leaning to the far right, people were afraid that it's going to have an impact on Roe versus Wade and other things associated with that. And the thing with the Supreme Court is it gets brought up a lot because, like, Trump was only president for 4 years. So, he did his damage, whatever, in those 4 years. But the people that he placed on the Supreme Court now, they're lifetime appointments. So he has now stacked the Supreme Court to the right for 20, 30, 40 years, maybe. And so that's the fear, is that, like, once change starts moving in a certain direction, like, say they start moving away from reproductive rights for women, that's a direction that they can go down, at least via the Supreme Court, for a long time, and that's potentially scary.
Absolutely.
I had something else that I was going to talk about too, and I've blanked on what it was. Oh, you're right. I was going to talk too, just briefly, about the TV show. That I found it interesting that, as dark as the book was, the TV show, I think, managed to get even darker.
Even darker, yeah.
Yeah.
I heard, or I read a comment Margret Atwood made about, I think it was the first episode, how Which was the one that the one that got pregnant that had the young baby? I can't remember her name now.
Oh, yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah, yeah. I think it was of Warren, but she was also Janine.
Janine, yeah, I think it was Janine is like um, just hammered by the rest of the handmaids, like slut whore or something like that. Or
Yeah, during that, yeah, and she,
I
yeah, she
haven't
has a
seen it, but I just yeah.
whole different arc. She ends up with her eye plucked out in like the first episode, and
Jesus Christ.
yeah, because she said something, and like it's that whole like if it offends you, thee, then pluck it out or something, and um, yeah, sure, her whole arc is very different, and but still dark, incredibly dark. The one thing I found interesting was the first time that we see the ceremony. Um, that was somehow even darker and more fucked up than it was in the book, just because
It was
you could
pretty
see it.
fucked up in the book.
Right.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
to actually have it play out and to see just how like everything about it is cold and methodical, and like the dude is like he has his hands on his hips and looking off in some other direction as he's humping
Oh
away,
my God.
and the handmaid is clearly not having a good
Oh.
time, and the wife is like
Mhm.
trying to get the husband to look at her, and everything is just messed up, and it was
Now,
uh
and this was the ceremony of Fred, right? That was in the
yes,
show,
yes.
or was this a? Okay, yeah, yeah.
But we do see well, yeah, no spoilers I guess, but you should watch it. I think you'd enjoy it, at least the first season, just to
Okay.
see the what it kept and what it got rid of and what it changed.
Mhm.
Of Warren's story is particularly distressing. Um, I got I got to the end of a particular episode, and I literally got up from the sofa and spent 2 minutes walking around going, "Oh fuck, oh fuck, oh
For
Jesus."
real?
For real. And
Holy
like
shit.
if anyone listening has watched the show, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. So
I have no idea what he's talking about.
yeah, no,
But
because it's completely
now
different
now I
from
have now I have to watch it.
okay, so do you have any final thoughts? I was thinking we could open up to like questions if people wanted to call in. And then we got a couple of people in the chat room who are potentially able to call if you wanted to give us a ring and ask us questions, share your thoughts.
Maybe we could wait to hold off on the final thoughts until after
Yeah.
after we open it up. Yeah.
No pressure or anything. We'll just have to like
All the pressure. All the
kill
pressure.
time. Um, what else have we? I mean, I've covered my star review. I've covered. I think everybody needs to read it. I think probably men should read it too, unless potentially men read it and go, "Fuck, man, this sounds great."
I don't. You know what? Honestly, I don't think so. And I feel like, and I think I brought this up in the one of the podcasts too. Nobody really seems to be having a good time in this
Yeah,
scenario.
no, that's true. That is true.
Like nobody really enjoys it. I don't like it. Just it feels like they tried to.
They tried to
Like
make the world
they
better. They tried to make the world better according to a certain perspective they had, and they found out that
Mhm.
perspective was fucked up. And again, I
Right.
think that goes to
Why it was
the
banned with
fault
like the
of
negative
religion.
religion. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. It's that
exactly.
if you try to live your life according to just the Bible, you're not going to have a good time.
Yeah.
It's like that guy who he put together that book, The Year of Living Biblically, or something, and he tried to like live for an entire year just based on the rules of the Bible. And I think again, like when most people when they say like they're living according to the Bible, they are very much picking and choosing which parts of the Bible they're
Oh yeah.
following, right?
Oh yeah.
Um,
Absolutely.
and it
But
seems like Gilead was one where they were very much trying to listen to every single aspect of the Bible, and that's definitely
I felt like they were picking and choosing too, though.
maybe.
Like thou shalt not commit adultery. Like that's a big one, right? Am I not correct on that? That's in the Bible.
Right, but I mean, if you're like, if your wife is allowing you to impregnate a handmaid, then that's not really adultery. And if you're referring to Jezebels, then that's, remember, like, men can't be blamed for the fact that they just have a need to wander sexually. Like, that's just how,
Well, that's
how they're
convenient.
built, right? But I mean, that sort of convenience, I think, is part and
Right.
parcel of how a lot of people do think, right? Like,
Mhm.
I'm making these rules for me, and I get to bend them because I'm the one who made the rules, and sucks to be you, right? Because in the case of the Handmaid's Tale, like, men are the sexually dominant creatures, and they have a need to wander, and blah 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 blah. Meanwhile, the women, their physical genetic drive is to make babies and nurture them, so they don't need to be able to go and boink others. That makes sense, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's clearly the way the world should work.
I like how in the book that is read in high schools they use the word fucking, and on our podcast you chose the word boink.
Oh, well, I've gone with fucking before. I don't want to wear it out. There's so many,
Right, yeah.
and I don't know if that scene would have had the same impact if, like, Margret Atwood had written, like, and it is boinking.
You know what? I've talked to you for a long time. I think if we would have worn out the word fuck, we would have done it by now.
I guess, yeah, that's fair. Now I kind of want to, like, do an experiment where you take a book and just replace every instance of the word fuck with boink and see what it does.
Scarface.
Scarface.
Change every F word in Scarface to boink.
Yeah, and in a really good,
don't
like,
boink me, Tony. Don't you dare boink me.
Yep.
All right. I'm gonna go on a limb and say that maybe we don't have any callers.
Yeah, I'm thinking we don't have any callers today. That's I guess that's okay.
Yeah.
We just need to fill another 20 minutes or so. I mean, I guess we could go short on this, but what else? I mean, I was a bad person. I didn't make any notes about my final thoughts because I thought I could just toss them off the top of my head. But
yeah. We haven't looked at the book in
a while.
3 weeks now.
Something like that. Yeah, it's been a nice period of. Actually, I started reading a book that's not related to the podcast for the first time in a number of months. So
nice.
I'm hoping I can get through that before we have to start reading A Clockwork Orange. What else? There was one thing that we didn't talk about much in the finale that was sort of a big thing, and I forgot what that was too. What we didn't talk about was the big story of their trying to get out. Because
like them being
the actual
of Fred and Luke.
Yeah. When they tried to get out and they were stopped at the border and all that stuff, like, we'd seen what happened before, we'd seen what happened after, but in those last 100 pages, that did include actually finding out what happened and how they got, or not necessarily how they got found out, but I thought it was interesting that basically they get to the border, they have their paperwork, they hand the paperwork over. Luke is outside the car, watching them. I think he sees one of the Guardians call something in. He thinks they've been found out. He gets in the car, backs up, drives away super fast, blah, blah, blah. Chase ensues. And what I thought was interesting there is at no point, and we had sort of talked about this earlier in conjunction with of Fred's being convinced that
it was their neighbor that called.
That it was her neighbors had called them in. Even though there's no reason to think that there was. And even in that moment here with Luke freaking out, he doesn't know for sure, right? Like, and it's that whole, everything is just so seeded with paranoia and fear in this world that all it takes is him seeing a Guardian pick up a phone to go, we're fucked. We got to go.
Now, you watched the show.
Yeah.
I'm just going to throw this question at you.
Yeah.
Was it explained if they were found out or not in the show?
So That happens differently in the show.
Oh, okay.
So what happens is they pay a guy to take them to a cabin where they
In
are
the
supposed to
woods?
wait. Yeah, cabin in the woods. Supposedly nobody else around. Um, then he's going to go back and try to get papers for them, I think.
Okay.
And while they're waiting there, it's been a couple of weeks. They bump into somebody else, and upon bumping into that other guy, they freak out because now they think that that guy's going to turn them in.
Mm.
So they start getting ready to go, and then the guy shows up on their door. Alfred pulls a gun on him and is about to shoot him, and he's like, "No, I'm going to help." He gives them his car and tells them where to go, but also says like they're coming, they know you're here, they're looking for you, and so they were just sort of on the run from that point. So there was no interaction with a border.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, that happens differently. They
Now
still
in
end
the
up
book,
crashing. And sorry.
oh, sorry. Go ahead. I was
going
just
to
gonna say,
they still end up crashing off road and splitting up the same way they did, but how they got there was different.
right.
And, yeah, you go ahead now.
Oh, okay. I was just gonna say, like, it makes you wonder, like, because we never really knew where they were going, but they must have been going to Canada.
They were going towards the Canadian.
Yeah. In the show for sure, but in the book, that's what I'm assuming. Like, because you had mentioned like maybe the colonies were Canada, but I think
Yeah,
Gilead
that was an early
Gilead
thought
seems
that I
like
had
it's a
because I
small
think,
part of the U.S. Sorry, go ahead.
well, I think I know you had said that early on, but I don't think that's the case because I think if you look at the like the idea that hey, look, that's me entered the live studio. Okay. If you if you think about how like the president was killed and all of Congress was killed, and then a new law was put in, like that's affecting the whole country. That's not just like you don't take over all of the American government and then say we're just running New England. I think
Right,
this
but
is something that's happening.
wouldn't a certain amount of the more liberal states kind of like
Oh yeah, I mean
not be
certainly I'm
okay with
sure
it?
California
Yeah.
was like they've got like armed troops on the border, or maybe they've tried to join Canada, but so that again that's part of the bigger picture that we didn't get to see in the
Yeah.
book, and we've only sort of got hints of in the show. Because yeah, I do suspect that there are like quote unquote freedom fighters fighting against this kind of thing, because they do talk about the angels being on the front lines of some kind of combat, which I'm
I'm
presuming
assuming it
is
would be civil. Yeah.
yeah. There's actually a really spoiler alert again for the TV show. Oh, what's her name? Of Fred's best friend from before,
Moira.
Yeah. So the Moira story happens mostly the same way. She ends up in Jezebel's, but then she ends up getting inspired by Alfred to escape Jezebel's, and she eventually makes it into Canada. And
okay.
when she gets into Canada, it is one of the most amazing scenes I've seen, because A, it was very Canadian, but also B, it was very it was this stark. So in Gilead, she was basically a non-person, right? She was a whore at Jezebel's and had no rights or anything. She gets to Canada and she's greeted there with like a refugee caseworker, and he's like, okay, so here's your free cell phone, here's your government health card, here's like $500 cash to get you started, here's it's like this, all of this, and her face is just like, what is happening? To go from literally a non-person to all of that, and again, that does strike me as very much a stereotypical Canadian way of doing things, right? That is totally how it would be, I think, which makes me super proud to be Canadian. But yeah, that was an entertaining scene.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to watch it now. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a good time. I haven't had a chance to see the film from 1990 yet. I wanted to watch that, but haven't gotten to it yet. I think it was on the Criterion Channel for a while. What else? we're still open to calls if anyone wants to give us a ring and share their thoughts on the book, or ask us questions about our thoughts on the book, or maybe just make some fart noises.
You could text some questions too if you don't want to.
Yeah, you can type up a question. We're watching the chats. If you want to engage, happy to engage with you. We're glad you're here. Glad you're listening. Not sure why you're still around, but we appreciate it.
Oh, come on.
Anything else you want to say? Any sort of things that you forgot to mention in past episodes that you kind of realized that you wanted to bring up?
I think I covered pretty much everything I wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
I really, really enjoyed her use of language. I think I said that.
Yeah.
Very, very creative in the way that she describes things. I don't know. There's just something about this book, like not just the political content and the civil rights and human rights content and the story, but just the language she uses was just it just kind of like it sparked your imagination in a really unique way, I thought.
Yeah.
I can't say I've read a book like this before.
Yeah, I feel like the language it does remind me of things that I've read in the past, just in the way it's a very sort of, I don't want to say simple voice in a way that's derogatory, because I'm sure it can be incredibly difficult to write simply. But it is a very, I'm not a fan of overwritten books. Like I try to read,
you don't want to read something that's like too pretentious.
Well, it's not necessarily pretentious.
Yeah.
But I mean, there are some writers who are very descriptive. Pardon me.
COVID.
COVID, yeah. I didn't. That's okay, because I'm socially distanced at home doing this podcast remotely. So near, it doesn't matter. Like, for example, I do really enjoy reading the Lord of the Rings. I found they were kind of overwritten for me. I found the same with Anne Rice's The Interview with a Vampire. It was just like too heavy, too much, too not wordy, but just, I don't know, didn't care for the style. Too much. Whereas another author I'm fond of, I think he was very good at writing simply, is Kurt Vonnegut. And I hope we can maybe cover Slaughterhouse-Five on this podcast sometime.
Add it to the list.
Absolutely, yeah. We got like most of 2021 to figure out. It's not like the remote distancing is going to go away anytime soon.
No, you didn't hear about that?
What?
They're planning on starting vaccinations in January.
Well, possibly
for the most vulnerable, and then they're hoping by September next year.
That's still like more than half the year.
Yeah,
and that assumes that the vaccinations are approved by everyone that has to approve them.
Right, but they're also going ahead and purchasing enough of several different kinds just in case.
Yeah, totally. Yeah,
or something like that.
That's smart.
No, I'm excited. I'm excited. I'm very excited.
You gonna line up, get your microchip?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm down for that too, as I'm sure you know.
Oh God.
Most
people do realize that there's no microchip small enough to go into your bloodstream, right?
What? What about nanobots?
I don't think we have nanobots yet.
What about Neener? Of course we have nanobots. The government
Neenerbots?
Neenerbots. Different from Wienerbots. So I'm going to take a second to mention another podcast that I do. It's called Half Cut Conspiracies, where we talk about things like, I don't know, microchips and vaccines. You can check it out at halfcutconspiracies.podbean.com. It comes out every 2 weeks. There should be a new episode coming up sometime today, in fact, about it's about the UN and Agenda 21 and that sort of thing. But it also, I think, mentions vaccines and microchips. I think the people who are most concerned about microchips really need to concern themselves with like, because everyone's convinced that it's about Bill Gates too. So, and we know what Bill Gates' history with technology is like, right? These microchips are going to like crash in your bloodstream, and they're going to be full of microchips that don't work. They don't do anything because they were running Windows 8.1 accidentally. Yeah, Windows 98.
Windows 98. Which is the worst one? Which one did
I
you
was a
find the
cross
worst?
between Windows 8 and Windows Me.
Oh yeah, ME was horrible.
Yeah, Windows 8 was pretty bad too, though. It was trying to. They were trying to move in a direction that was very touch focused, and that made the non-touch interface kind of wonky. And then they ended up with Windows 10, which is I think a good balance between touch interface and non-touch interface.
Yeah,
welcome to When Bad Things Happen to Good People, the podcast about Microsoft products. as we desperately try to fill up time until we're done an hour. What else can we digress on? Maybe we should wrap it up early.
Yeah, I think so.
All right, one last call in case anyone wants to call in or say hello or throw something in the chat for us to talk about. Do you have any opinions on which is the worst Windows platform or other important topics that we've covered today? Do you have a favorite band, book, or film you'd like us to cover at some point in the future? I mean, I know we've talked about our plans until January, but is that a mushroom?
That's a toot.
Squid? It's a toot. It's like a fart. You farted at me.
Yeah.
I don't have toots in my.
We're classy here. We're classy.
We're classy here. Well, I am. I don't have any toots in mine. I just have a. I have a shocked poop guy. I've got.
All right, Todd. I think that's it.
I think that's it. Thanks again, everyone, for listening and hanging out with us. We'll be back in a couple of weeks, as I said, with I Am Jazz. My Xbox is making noise in the background. I hope that's getting picked up. And yeah, if you like what we're doing, you can support us on Patreon. We've got a few different levels of support there, everything from $2 up to $500 if you are a wealthy person who has bad taste in podcasts and bad investment instincts. It's blah, blah, blah media, BLAH media. And that comes at the end of patreon.com. I said that all wrong. It's patreon.com/blah, blah, blah media, BLAH media. That supports this podcast as well as the one I mentioned earlier, Half Cut Conspiracies, because we're.
Wait, how do you spell blah again?
BLAH.
Oh, right. Got it.
Yeah. Three times. BLAH.
Okay.
I was thinking I might register BLAH3 like blah cubed as a domain name as well. That might be easier.
I still think you just need to switch it to Toddcasts.
Yeah, there is somebody out there who does a Toddcast right now, and I also wanted to at one point. The very first podcast idea I had was to do a podcast called the Toddcast, and it was going to be about, I get a bunch of email for other Todd Sullivans in the world.
Yeah, that's right.
And so I was going to have a podcast that was just me reading all of the different emails I got with like a low, sexy ASMR kind of voice. And then also there was also going to be like a historical Todd, or this Todd in history, where I'd look at a historical Todd. And then, give that Todd a thumbs up or a thumbs down or rate a Todd. I don't know what it was going to be called. But it was.
I give this Todd 3 Todds out of 5.
3 Todds out of 5. Yeah. So.
Okay, but what would be the legality behind reading an email that was meant for another Todd Sullivan? Even because you got it.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Like it's even if they put in that whole like this was intended for blah blah blah, and if you're not the intended person, then you have to delete it. Blah blah blah. That doesn't do anything, right? Because that implies that forces you into a contract without your consent.
Right.
So yeah, it's like it's literally if somebody broke into my house and left their diary in the middle of it, that's pretty much what's happening with those emails, right?
Right. Okay.
So, I mean, I would just out of personal kindness, I'd leave out, things like their address, things like that. But yeah, I got a bunch. There was
Have
one
you
Todd
kept them
Sullivan.
all over the years?
No, not all of them, but I've kept many of them. I have
Okay.
I have a folder in my Gmail inbox called Todd 2 that I file all those things to. And there have been times that like I've been pretty sure I've gotten enough personal information that I could do some kind of identity theft. Obviously, I haven't, and if I had, I wouldn't admit it on a podcast. But it's just a reminder of like how important some of those digital details of your life are, and how like email especially. If you lose your email, like you've pretty much lost everything else, because every other service you use, you can reset your password to those things through your email. So as soon as somebody gets access to your email, they can reset your access to your credit card, to your this, to your that, like anything they want to get into, they can. So like if you got to have one secure password on something, it's got to be your email, or
protect your emails.
Protect your email. Yeah. Make sure you have a secure password, and don't tell other people the wrong email address so that somebody else gets all of your super important mail. Okay. I think that's it for this week. Thanks for listening. This has been When Bad Things Happen to Good People. I am Todd Sullivan.
And I am Oren Barter.
And I'm playing the outro, actually.
Hey,
it's working.
You are. You did it. You did it.
Thanks for listening, everybody.